The Iran nuclear negotiators have now missed 2 deadlines. Should the upcoming March deadline for talks be the final one? And what are the circumstances in which you think it would be wise to extend those talks? Also, sir, some have suggested that you are outraged by the Israeli Prime Minister's decision to address Congress. Is that so? And how would you advise Democrats who are considering a boycott?
I think there was always the assumption that although the interim agreement lasted a certain period of time, that we would probably need more time to move forward. The good news is that there have been very serious discussions. That time has been well spent. This is not a circumstance in which, by talking, they've been stalling and meanwhile advancing their program. To the contrary, what we know is the program has not only been frozen, but with respect to, for example, 20% enriched uranium, they've reversed it. I don't see a further extension being useful if they have not agreed to the basic formulation and the bottom line that the world requires. With respect to Prime Minister Netanyahu, as I've said before, I talk to him all the time. Our teams constantly coordinate. We have a practice of not meeting with leaders right before their elections, 2 weeks before their elections. As much as I love Angela, if she was 2 weeks away from an election, she probably would not have received an invitation to the White House. And I suspect she wouldn't have asked for one. So, you know, this is just, you know, some of this just has to do with how we do business. And I think it's important for us to maintain these protocols, because the U.S.-Israeli relationship is not about a particular party. The way to preserve that is to make sure that it doesn't get clouded with what could be perceived as partisan politics. Whether that's accurate or not, that is a potential perception, and that's something that we have to guard against. Now, I don't want to be coy. The Prime Minister and I have a very real difference around Iran sanctions. I have been very clear, and Angela agrees with me, and David Cameron agrees with me, and the others who are a member of the negotiations agree, that it does not make sense to sour the negotiations a month or two before they're about to be completed. What's the rush? Unless your view is that it's not possible to get a deal with Iran, and it shouldn't even be tested. And that I cannot agree with, because as the President of the United States, I'm looking at what the options are if we don't get a diplomatic resolution. And those options are narrow and they're not attractive. And from the perspective of U.S. interests, and I believe from the perspective of Israel's interests, although I can't speak for, obviously, the Israeli government, it is far better if we can get a diplomatic solution. So there are real differences substantively, but that's separate and apart from the whole issue of Mr. Netanyahu coming to Washington.